The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Maria Rodriguez stepped forward, her blue diplomatic uniform pristine despite the 3-day journey from Earth. Around her, representatives from a dozen alien species sat in their elaborate hovering seats, their expressions ranging from amused to openly contemptuous. "Honored Council," Maria began, her voice steady despite the weight of humanity's fate resting on her shoulders. "I come bearing a final message from the United Earth Federation. Withdraw your invasion fleets from our solar system, or face the consequences." A sound like grinding metal erupted from the RoarHFY representative, their equivalent of laughter. The insectoid creature's mandibles clicked as it spoke through its translator. "Consequences? From the primitive mammals who still use chemical propulsion?" The crystalline delegate's voice chimed like broken glass. "Your entire species couldn't defeat a single one of our scout ships. What consequences could you possibly threaten us with?" Maria's jaw tightened. She had expected this reaction, but it still stung. Earth had been discovered only 5 years ago, and in that time, they had been classified as a Class II civilization, barely worthy of notice, except for their planet's abundant resources and strategic location. "I urge you to reconsider," Maria said, pulling out a small data pad containing Earth's final diplomatic offer. "Earth may seem primitive to you, but we have capabilities you haven't seen." The council leader, a tall being with smooth gray skin and large black eyes, one of the ethereals who considered themselves the galaxy's most advanced species, leaned forward with what might have been pity. "Young human," the leader said, its telepathic voice echoing in everyone's minds, "your species has existed for mere millennia. Some of us have ruled star systems since before your sun ignited. Your bravery is quaint. But bravery cannot stop our armada." Through the chamber's massive viewing screens, Maria could see them, thousands of alien warships arranged in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with energy shields and weapon ports. Each ship was larger than Earth's biggest cities, and their combined firepower could crack planets. "You have 72 of your Earth hours to evacuate your major population centers," the leader continued coldly. "We will strip mine your planet efficiently. Some of your species will be preserved as specimens for our research facilities." The other delegates murmured their approval, already discussing how to divide Earth's resources among their civilizations. The water rights alone would make several species wealthy beyond measure. Maria closed her eyes for a moment, drawing on years of diplomatic training and the knowledge that 8 billion human lives depended on her next words. When she opened them again, there was something in her gaze that made several delegates shift uncomfortably. "I tried to warn you," she said quietly, her voice carrying a strange certainty. "Remember that when this is over." She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. The chamber's atmosphere had subtly changed, though none of the aliens could quite identify why. "Ambassador," the leader called after her, its mental voice tinged with curiosity. "Your defiance is admirable but pointless. No reinforcements are coming. Your planet stands alone against the combined might of 12 civilizations." Maria paused at the doorway without turning around, her hand moving to the communicator on her wrist. "That's where you're wrong. Earth is never alone." She tapped the device twice. "Rodriguez to command. Diplomacy has failed. Initiate Protocol Omega." As she left the chamber, none of the delegates noticed the slight smile that played across her face, or the way her hand trembled not with fear, but with barely contained anticipation for what was about to unfold across the galaxy. Captain James Mitchell sat in the command chair of the ESS Defiance, one of Earth's newest destroyers. His weathered face reflected years of space combat, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Around him, his bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their hands steady despite the impossible odds. Through the main viewer, the enemy armada filled space like a metal storm cloud, over 3,000 ships arranged in perfect battle formation. "Sir," called Lieutenant Torres from the communications station, her voice tight with controlled tension. "Ambassador Rodriguez has transmitted the go code. Protocol Omega is active." Mitchell nodded grimly, feeling the weight of Earth's survival on his shoulders. Signal the fleet. All ships, implement stealth protocols and move to designated positions. This is what we've trained for, people. The Defiance shuddered as its experimental cloaking field activated, the ship's hull seeming to bend light around it. One by one, Earth's defensive fleet, all 200 ships, vanished from sensors like ghosts fading into the void. It was their newest technology, painstakingly reverse-engineered from a crashed alien scout ship 3 years ago by Earth's best scientists working around the clock. On the alien flagship Dominion's edge, Commander Vex 9 studied his tactical displays with growing confusion. The primitive human vessels that had been detected an hour ago, laughably small craft that his fleet could have destroyed with a single barrage, were simply gone. Report, he demanded, his reptilian features twisted with annoyance. His scaled hands drummed impatiently on the command console. Unknown, sir, replied his sensor officer, a young Vorthak whose mandibles clicked nervously. They appear to have some form of basic stealth technology. Impressive for primitives, but irrelevant. Our deep scan sensors can penetrate any camouflage system developed by a Class II civilization. The officer's words were cut off as proximity alarms began blaring throughout the massive flagship, red warning lights bathing the bridge in an ominous glow. Contact. Multiple contacts appearing throughout the fleet, screamed the tactical officer. Massive energy signatures. They're everywhere. On every screen throughout the alien armada, the same impossible sight appeared, human ships materializing from empty space like phantoms stepping into reality, their weapons already charging with ominous energy. But these weren't the small destroyers and frigates they had detected earlier. These were massive vessels, dreadnoughts and battlecruisers that seemed to dwarf even the largest alien ships, their hulls bristling with weapon systems that defied classification. Impossible, Vex 9 hissed, his vertical pupils contracting in shock. Scan those ships. How did they hide vessels of that size? Where did they get the resources to build a fleet that massive? The sensor readings that came back made his cold blood freeze in his veins. The human ships weren't just big, they were reading as solid metal constructs, but their energy signatures were wrong. Faint. Almost ghostly, like echoes of ships rather than the vessels themselves. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Mitchell watched as the massive holographic projections flickered slightly in space around them. Each of Earth's small ships was projecting the image of a massive dreadnought, complete with false energy signatures, convincing weapon ports, and even simulated crew movements visible through transparent sections of hull. Projection stability at 87% and holding, reported the science officer, sweat beading on her forehead as she monitored the quantum field generators. The enemy sensors are trying to penetrate our holograms, but the quantum scramblers are disrupting their deep scans. Mitchell allowed himself a tight smile. It was an old human trick, make your enemy think you're bigger than you are. On ancient Earth, armies had used it with war drums and battle flags, creating shadows on hillsides to suggest vast forces. Now, humanity was using the same principle with holographic projectors and quantum field manipulators, turning science fiction into psychological warfare. All ships, Mitchell broadcast on the encrypted tactical channel, remember, we only need to maintain the illusion for 30 minutes. Make them count. Sell it with everything you've got. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood in a command center buried 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching as her carefully laid plans unfolded across a dozen holographic displays that painted the walls in blue light. Around her, the best tactical minds from every nation on Earth coordinated the defense of their world, former enemies now united against extinction. Ghost Fleet reports successful deployment, announced Colonel Park from the communications hub, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. Enemy fleet is maintaining position, but they're running intensive scans on our projections. The quantum scramblers are holding, but barely. How long do we have? Vasquez asked, her weathered face showing the strain of sleepless nights planning this desperate gambit. 12 minutes, maybe 15 before they realize they're looking at advanced holograms, Park replied, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool underground air. Vasquez nodded grimly. It would be enough. It had to be. Signal Phase 2. Activate the resonance web. Across the solar system, humanity's real secret weapon came online. Hidden within asteroids that had been secretly hollowed out over months, disguised as space debris drifting in the void, and embedded in the hulls of seemingly disabled satellites, thousands of small devices began to emit a specific quantum frequency, a frequency that Dr. Elizabeth Harrison's team had discovered could tear holes in space itself. The technology had been discovered by accident 2 years ago when Earth's deep space monitoring stations detected something impossible, a series of quantum resonance patterns that seemed to occur naturally throughout the galaxy. The patterns created brief, unstable rifts in spacetime that connected distant points across vast distances. Harrison had called them cosmic highways, naturally occurring quantum pathways that advanced civilizations might use for faster-than-light travel. But Earth's scientists had found a way to weaponize them. On the alien flagship, Vex 9 was growing more suspicious by the minute as his tactical computers analyzed the human fleet. "Those ships aren't moving like dreadnoughts," he growled at his tactical officer, his scaled tail lashing with agitation. "Their acceleration patterns are all wrong for vessels that size. The mass readings don't match the visual profiles." "Sir, I'm detecting some kind of massive quantum disturbance throughout the system," reported the science officer, her voice rising with alarm. "The readings are off every scale we have. It's like space itself is becoming unstable." The ship's lights flickered ominously as reality itself seemed to ripple around them like water disturbed by stones. "What was that?" Vex 9 demanded, his claws gripping his command chair. Before anyone could answer, space began to tear. The first rift opened directly in front of the alien vanguard, a wound in the fabric of reality itself, crackling with eldritch energy that hurt to look at directly. Then another appeared. And another. Within seconds, dozens of spatial rifts had opened throughout the enemy formation like hungry mouths, and from each one came something that made even the battle-hardened aliens freeze in absolute terror. Ships. But not human ships. The vessels that emerged from the rifts were massive, organic-looking monstrosities that seemed to be grown rather than built. Their hulls pulsed with sickly bioluminescent patterns like infected veins, and they moved with a fluid, predatory grace that no mechanical ship could match. These were the Devourers, the galaxy's most feared enemy, the nightmare that haunted every species' darkest legends. Or at least, that's what they appeared to be. "Impossible," screamed the Vorthack representative over the emergency channel, his voice breaking with primal fear. The Devourers were destroyed eons ago. Every ship, every trace of their civilization was eliminated. In the Galactic Council chamber, panic was reaching critical levels as delegates witnessed their greatest fear made manifest. The ethereal leader's mental voice was tight with terror that transcended rational thought. "All ships, withdraw immediately. Do not engage the Devourers under any circumstances." What they didn't know was that the Devourers were actually sophisticated holograms, more detailed and convincing than anything humanity had ever created, projected through the quantum rifts by Earth's hidden satellites. The real Devourers had been extinct for millions of years, but their image still haunted galactic nightmares. As the alien armada fled toward the outer solar system in desperate retreat, their formation scattering like leaves in a cosmic storm, Admiral Vasquez allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. The enemy was moving exactly where Earth strategists had predicted they would go, toward the asteroid belt, where they would attempt to regroup and desperately try to understand how humanity had summoned their greatest nightmare from the void. "Phase 3 is go," she announced, her voice carrying across the underground command center with quiet authority. "Activate the ancestral fleet." Light years away, in the depths of space where no living being had traveled for countless eons, ancient machines began to stir from their millennial slumber. These weren't Earth's creations, they were genuine alien artifacts, remnants of a civilization so impossibly old that even the ethereals, who claimed to remember the birth of galaxies, spoke of them only in reverent whispers. The progenitors. The discovery had been made 18 months ago by Earth's deep space probe Magellan 7, a desperate long-range scout sent to search for anything that might help in the coming war. Hidden within the swirling nebulae at the galaxy's edge were the remnants of a massive space station, its architecture so alien and advanced that human scientists could barely comprehend its basic structural principles. But they had understood one crucial thing: the station's automated defenders were still active, still following ancient protocols programmed when Earth's sun was nothing but cosmic dust. Dr. Marcus Webb, Earth's leading xenoarchaeologist and the man who had dedicated his life to understanding dead civilizations, had spent months in isolation deciphering fragments of the progenitor language. Working with quantum computers and AI translation matrices, he had managed to unlock just enough of their ancient tongue to activate a single, critical command buried deep in their automated systems. Protect the young races from the tyranny of the old. Now, as the alien fleet regrouped near Jupiter's orbit, their ships clustering together like frightened animals, space itself seemed to come alive with impossible energies. The first ship emerged from hyperspace like a mountain of living crystal and pure light, its arrival heralded by gravitational waves that made Jupiter's moons tremble in their orbits. It was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the largest alien dreadnought, and its hull seemed to be constructed from some kind of living metal that shifted and flowed like liquid mercury, covered in ancient symbols that pulsed with power older than recorded history. Then came another. And another. Within minutes, a fleet of 12 progenitor war titans had materialized in the solar system, their presence so overwhelming that even Earth's most sophisticated sensors could barely process what they were detecting. These weren't just ancient ships, they were instruments of cosmic judgment, the legendary vessels that had once cleansed entire galactic sectors of corruption and chaos. On the alien flagship, Vex 9 stared at his displays in absolute terror that transcended mere fear and approached religious awe. The energy readings from the ancient ships were beyond every scale his instruments possessed, registering power levels that approached those of small stars. These weren't just progenitor vessels, they were war titans, artifacts of such devastating capability that their very existence was considered mythical. "Sir," whispered his communications officer, a seasoned veteran whose voice now trembled like a child's, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead ship. It's in the old tongue, sir. The original progenitor language that hasn't been heard for millions of years." The message that echoed through every alien ship was brief but carried the weight of cosmic authority: "Depart this place, children of lesser civilizations. The inheritors walk under our protection." In the Galactic Council chamber, the ethereal leader collapsed into its floating chair, its usually composed mental voice reduced to barely a whisper of shock. "The progenitors, but they ascended beyond physical existence eons ago. How can they still have ships in our reality?" "Apparently," said the crystalline delegate, its harmonic voice cracking like breaking ice, "reports of their departure were premature." In the depths of space, drifting in the void between the outer planets where no sensors could detect it, something vast began to move with purpose for the first time in 8 years. It had been waiting there in the cosmic darkness, its massive hull scarred by micrometeorites and solar radiation, disguised as just another piece of ancient space debris from the system's violent formation. To any casual observer scanning the outer system, it would have appeared to be nothing more than an unusually large asteroid, just another chunk of primordial rock left over from the universe's chaotic birth eons ago. But the ESS Prometheus was very much alive, and it was about to change the balance of galactic power forever. Captain Sarah Kane stood on the bridge of humanity's most closely guarded secret, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched her crew prepare for the moment they had trained for their entire adult lives. The ship around her was unlike anything in Earth's official fleet. A hybrid masterpiece of human engineering and carefully salvaged alien technology, built in the hidden shipyards carved into asteroids throughout the outer system over the past 8 years of desperate preparation. The Prometheus was Earth's true mothership, and it was about to announce humanity's real place in the galactic hierarchy with a voice of thunder that would echo across the stars. "Status report," Kane ordered, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had commanded starships through impossible battles. "All systems showing green across the board, Captain," replied Commander Jackson from the engineering station, his fingers dancing over holographic displays showing power levels that would have been considered impossible by alien standards. The quantum drives are at full power, fusion reactors are stable, and all weapon systems are online and ready for deployment. Communications, are you picking up the alien fleet's transmissions? Lieutenant Morrison looked up from her console, her face pale with the weight of intercepted alien communications. Yes, ma'am. They're in complete panic mode. The progenitor ships have them surrounded, they're detecting phantom devourers on their rear sensors, and their command structure is beginning to collapse. Multiple ships are requesting permission to abandon formation and retreat to their home systems. Kane nodded grimly, feeling the weight of 8 billion human lives pressing down on her shoulders. According to the carefully orchestrated plan, this was the precise moment when Earth would reveal its final card, the ace that had been hidden in the cosmic deck since the aliens first discovered humanity's existence. She opened a secure quantum-encrypted channel to Earth Command, the signal piercing through space instantaneously via technology that even the Ethereals would have envied. Admiral Vasquez, this is Kane aboard the Prometheus. We are in optimal position and all systems are functioning within acceptable parameters. Ready to commence final phase on your authorization. Copy, Prometheus, came Vasquez's voice, steady despite the monumental stakes. You are cleared for Revelation Protocol. Show them what humanity is truly capable of when we put our minds to something. Kane turned to address her crew, men and women who had volunteered for what many military analysts believed would be a suicide mission against impossible odds. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been the greatest honor of my life serving alongside you. If we don't make it back to Earth, remember that we died protecting every human child who will ever look up at the stars and dream of exploring them. She paused, then allowed herself a fierce smile that would have made ancient Viking warriors proud. Now let's give these aliens something that will keep them awake at night for the next 1,000 years. The captain activated the ship-wide communications system, her voice echoing through every corridor and compartment of the massive vessel. All hands, this is the captain speaking. Decloak the ship. Let them see exactly what humanity has been building in the darkness. The silence stretched for nearly 10 minutes, an eternity in the middle of a standoff between fleets that could annihilate star systems. On his flagship, Commander Vex 9 stared at the tactical displays with growing desperation, his scaled hands trembling as he tried to process what he was seeing. The readings from the human mothership defied every law of physics his species understood, showing energy signatures that should have been impossible for any civilization to achieve, let alone one they had classified as primitive mere hours ago. Sir, his intelligence officer said carefully, his voice barely above a whisper, if their claims are accurate, if they truly have installations throughout the galaxy and genuine alliances with both the progenitors and the devourers, then we have been catastrophically deceived. Vex 9 finished, his reptilian features twisting in a mixture of rage and growing fear. But that ship, those installations, that impossible technology. How did they hide all of this from our intelligence networks? How did every spy, every probe, every deep space monitoring station miss a conspiracy of this magnitude? What he didn't know was that Earth's galaxy-wide network consisted mostly of automated probes no larger than footballs, cleverly disguised communication relays that mimicked natural cosmic phenomena, and a handful of research outposts that had been carefully camouflaged as asteroid mining operations. Humanity's real strength had always been their ability to make a little look like a lot, to turn smoke and mirrors into weapons of mass deception. In the Galactic Council chamber, emergency sessions were being called as delegates tried desperately to understand how they had so completely misread the situation. Ancient beings who had ruled space lanes for millennia were questioning everything they thought they knew about galactic politics. Review all intelligence reports from the past 5 years, demanded the ethereal leader, its mental voice tight with barely controlled fury that rippled through the chamber like psychic lightning. How did we miss an alliance between humanity, the progenitors, and the returned devourers? How did we fail to detect a civilization advanced enough to hide motherships in our own scanning networks? The truth was, they hadn't missed anything, because most of it didn't exist. The progenitor ships were following ancient automated programming, not negotiated treaties. The Devourers were sophisticated holograms projected through quantum rifts. But fear has a way of making even the most logical beings see vast conspiracies where none exist, turning coincidence into calculated strategy. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain Kane watched the alien fleet's formation through her tactical displays, noting how their ships had begun to cluster defensively, their weapon systems powered down in what could only be interpreted as a gesture of surrender. They were clearly in heated discussion, probably debating whether to fight a war they couldn't win or flee from an enemy they couldn't understand. "Captain," reported her communications officer, tension evident in every syllable, "we're receiving urgent transmissions from Earth Command. The Ghost Fleet projections are beginning to destabilize, quantum coherence is dropping below sustainable levels. We've got maybe 20 minutes before they realize the Devourers aren't real." Kane nodded grimly, feeling the weight of time pressing against them like a physical force. "And the progenitor ships? Dar. Webb estimates another 4 hours of automated support, but if the aliens decide to engage in direct combat, those war titans will defend themselves according to their original programming. The resulting battle would probably sterilize everything from Mars to Jupiter and leave the inner system uninhabitable for centuries." Kane felt the crushing weight of her species' survival pressing down on her shoulders like the gravity of a collapsing star. Everything depended on the next few minutes: 8 billion human lives, the future of Earth's children, humanity's place among the stars. She opened a direct channel to the alien fleet, her voice carrying across space with absolute authority. "Commander Vex 9, I know you can hear me. You're running out of time to make the right decision for your people." 3 months later, Ambassador Maria Rodriguez stood once again in the Galactic Council chamber, but the atmosphere was entirely different from her first desperate visit. The same delegates who had laughed at her warnings and dismissed humanity as primitive now listened to her every word with respectful attention, their previous arrogance replaced by cautious deference. "The United Earth Federation accepts the Council's proposal for full membership," she announced, her voice carrying throughout the chamber with newfound authority. "However, we have some conditions of our own that must be met before we can move forward with integration." The ethereal leader, its mental voice carefully neutral and stripped of its former condescension, responded with diplomatic precision. "Please state your terms, Ambassador Rodriguez. The Council is prepared to negotiate in good faith." First, Maria began, consulting her data pad with deliberate slowness. "Humanity will retain absolute sovereignty over the Sol system and any colonial worlds we establish in the future. Second, Earth demands permanent representation on the Council's Security Committee with full voting rights. Third, we require immediate and unrestricted access to the Galactic Trade Network and the Scientific Exchange Program." There were murmurs around the chamber, not of outrage or dismissal, but of careful consideration. After what they had witnessed 3 months ago, none of the alien species were eager to antagonize humanity or test the limits of their mysterious capabilities. "Your terms are entirely acceptable," the leader replied, its telepathic voice betraying no hint of the fear that still haunted galactic leadership. "However, the Council would be deeply interested in understanding more about your relationships with the progenitors and the returned Devourers. Such alliances would have profound implications for galactic stability and future policy." Maria smiled slightly, the expression containing secrets that could reshape civilizations. "I'm afraid the details of those relationships remain classified at the highest levels of Earth's government. But I can say that humanity values its friendships very highly and protects its allies with equal dedication." What she didn't mention was that the alliance with the progenitors had ended exactly as Dr. Webb had predicted. The ancient ships had returned to their millennial dormancy once their automated protocols were satisfied, becoming lifeless hulks floating in distant nebulae. The Devourers had never existed at all, merely sophisticated holograms that had exploited the galaxy's deepest fears. But the universe didn't need to know these inconvenient truths. Light years away, the ESS Prometheus had returned to its secret base carved into the asteroids of the outer solar system, where it was being retrofitted with genuine improvements to its already formidable technology. Captain Kane stood at the observation deck, watching as work crews swarmed over her ship's hull like industrious insects, installing new systems reverse-engineered from captured alien technology. "Penny for your thoughts, Captain," asked Commander Jackson as he joined her at the viewing port, both officers still bearing the invisible scars of their desperate gambit. "I was just thinking about how close we came to losing everything," Kane replied, her reflection ghostlike in the transparent aluminum. "If even one component of the plan had failed, if the aliens had called our bluff at any point." Jackson nodded soberly. "But it didn't fail. And now humanity has breathing room to actually become what we pretended to be. The galaxy believes we're a major power with advanced technology and powerful allies." That was the truth that both thrilled and terrified Earth's leadership. Their elaborate deception had bought them time, respect, and a seat at the galactic table, but it had also committed humanity to a path they couldn't abandon. The galaxy now believed Earth was a major power with incredible capabilities and mysterious allies. Maintaining that illusion would require making it reality through years of desperate innovation and careful expansion. In the depths of space, automated Earth probes continued their silent vigil, slowly building the network that had been fictional just months before. Human scientists worked around the clock in secret facilities, studying alien technologies and turning salvaged components into genuine advances that might one day match their boastful claims.